This week on True Crime Travelers. How many of you have used Tinder to find a travel buddy abroad? Or maybe a whirlwind romance? I certainly have. But what if that Tinder match ends up putting you in the arms of a predator? What if that Tinder match ends up being the last person to ever see you alive? Welcome to True Crime Travelers, where we investigate cases of missing and murdered travelers around the world. We are Alexa and Amelia, award-winning travel experts and the authors behind the Solo Girls Travel Guide book series. We are obsessed with safety and true crime, but I promise we're not here to scare you. We're here to prepare you. When I was single, living in Bali, during COVID, when there was nothing else to do, I had a newsletter called First Date Nightmares, where I would go on first dates on Tinder or Bumble, and then I would write about the bad ones. And there were some really bad ones. There was this one date, I went on this date with a guy, and he was in his 50s, and I was like, oh, mature, right? Like a mature relationship. I love that. I kissed him. On the way home, he told me that he was married. He told me that his wife had stage 4 cancer. I was furious. And then he texted me later and he said, do you want to be in an open relationship? I could have smacked the freaking face off his face. I was furious. And I would write about it. Because if people could learn the lessons from my dates during COVID when we had nothing else to do, why not? But that was my worst case scenario. What if your worst case scenario was meeting someone who wasn't exactly who they said they were? That's today's episode. We're going to Auckland, New Zealand. This is the story of Grace Millane, a 21-year-old backpacker who took a year to travel the world, eventually ending up in New Zealand. Now, before we get into today's case, let me tell you it's just me today because I'm in Bali, and Amelia and I, we dove into trying to record an episode together, but Bali Wi-Fi is not on our side. So for the next couple episodes, it might just be me and you, and you'll see Amelia when I head back to Seattle in 3 weeks. So let's get into today's case. Grace Emmy Rose Millane was born in Essex, England in 1996. She was the youngest of 3. She had 2 older brothers. She was creative, she was sociable, and she was an artist who loved painting, with watercolors in particular, just like Amelia does. After earning her degree in advertising and marketing from the University of Lincoln, she decided to celebrate her newfound freedom with a 1-year-long backpacking adventure. I am so proud of this girl. She was on her one-way ticket plan path. Grace's travels began in Peru, and then she spent 6 weeks traveling around South America before making her way to New Zealand. Along the whole way, she shared her stories on Instagram, and she was constantly bombarding her family with photos and messages and calls. She was so connected to the people back home that they knew at all times where she was and what she was doing. The photos she was sending were of her and other travelers and new friends, and she quickly learned that solo travel does not mean traveling alone. She had a community everywhere she went. She quickly learned that, hey, solo travel isn't that scary. Grace, day after day, she learned to trust people. She learned to trust the people she met. And I want that for you as a traveler too. But as we are soon going to find out, not everyone deserves your trust. On November 19th, 2018, Grace arrived in New Zealand, a solo traveler seeking connection, beauty, experience, and love. I mean, she's single after all, and she's 21. What else are you gonna do? And you know what? New Zealand is very safe. New Zealand is consistently ranked one of the safest countries in the world. According to the Global Peace Index, the GPI, New Zealand is often the top 3 for overall peace, safety, and stability. Violent crime, especially towards travelers, is very rare, making New Zealand a popular destination for solo adventurers, especially women. One of the things that makes New Zealand so safe is their use of CCTV everywhere, almost like South Korea or almost like China. You can rely on CCTV tracking your movements everywhere. And studies have shown that when a society knows they're being tracked, they actually do behave better. So if Grace was my sister, my friend, my daughter, I would feel very okay with her going to New Zealand. And I would feel very okay with Grace using Tinder to find travel guides, travel buddies, travel lovers in this new country. So Grace had landed in New Zealand on November 19th, but by December 1st, Grace had made her way to Auckland, New Zealand, staying at Base Backpackers Hostel, where she met more travelers and she felt more safe and more confident. And you know, the best way to see a city is through a local's eyes. So Grace got on Tinder, where she matched with a man named Jesse Kempson. Grace seemed hesitant to meet him, to be honest. She was kind of playing hard to get. But Jesse, he was eager. I'm going to read you the Tinder exchange between Grace and Jesse. On Friday, November 30th, 2018, Jesse says, "Hey Grace, how are you? Much planned for your weekend?" Grace says, "Hi, I'm good, thanks. It's actually my birthday tomorrow and I have no plans." "Oh, happy birthday for tomorrow," he says. "Much planned this evening then?" "No." "Well, where should we go?" Jesse says, "I know a cool Mexican place." Grace says no to the Mexican place. He says, "Okay, there's a couple places that do great cocktails. What if we meet at Sky City?" And then he seems very eager. And she's kind of playing with him and she says, "I haven't said yes yet." And he says, "You haven't said no either." They do this back and forth for a while, and Grace eventually agrees to meet Jesse at Sky City. Now, Sky City is this complex that has casinos and bars. It's kind of like a one-stop shop for a date. It's a great idea, actually. And she decides to meet him there, in this public place where there is tons of people. What could go wrong, right? Behind the scenes, Grace was actually pretty excited. She messaged her friend back home saying, "I click with him so well. He's an oil manager, and he lives in a hotel." Grace took a selfie before she left on her date the night before her 22nd birthday. She looked stunning. She had a dark red lip. She was wearing a cute black dress, white tennis shoes, and a crossbody bag. Now, Grace's date started at Sky City. They met up. Jesse is on CCTV giving her a hug. Not a creepy one, just like a really nice, friendly hug. And then they enter into the entertainment complex. They have a drink, and it goes well. So then they move on to the next place, a place called the Blue Stone Room. CCTV footage, which you guys are going to notice that this entire case has been documented as if there was a documentary crew, but it's just New Zealand's CCTV footage. It shows them laughing and talking. And then at one point, Grace gets up to go to the bathroom, and she leaves her purse behind. CCTV footage shows Jesse pick up her purse, open it, and rifle through it. What was he looking for, and why? Nevertheless, Grace comes back from the bathroom, and things are going well. So well that Grace and Jesse leave together, and they go back to Jesse's hotel, the City Life Hotel, arm in arm. We know this because there's CCTV footage. They walk in together. Jesse's arm is over Grace's shoulder and she's holding his hand. She's not stumbling. She's not in distress. She looks happy. She looks content. she looks like this is her choice. And again, when the clock strikes midnight, it's Grace's birthday. Why not go out? Why not have fun? Why not let a man treat you really special, right? Midnight came and went. The next morning, the sun rose, but Grace was not back in her hostel bed. Maybe she was in Jesse's bed and would head back to the hostel shortly after she woke. 8 a.m. in New Zealand is about 7 p.m. in the UK, by the way. So her family, they were waiting by the phone, waiting to wish Grace a happy birthday when she woke up. I'm sure they wanted to know, what was she going to do to celebrate? Was anyone going to get her a cake? But at 8 a.m., nothing. 10 a.m., nothing. Noon, nothing. Her friends and her family, they were calling her, but both of her phones were going straight to voicemail. By now, it's late in England, and her family is starting to worry. She's not responding to their messages. She's not picking up their phone calls. This is an immediate red flag. This was not like Grace. Her parents, they were used to daily updates. Her brother said that she would flood them with messages and photos all the time. So for silence, to have silence from her on her birthday, was absolutely an immediate red flag. Her parents, they decided to contact the hostel where they knew she was staying. And the hostel confirmed that Grace had not returned home from her night out. The family, they contacted the police. An investigation began immediately. The police went to the hostel and they confirmed that her belongings were still there, untouched. Her bags, her passport. So the Auckland police, they launched a full investigation, quickly piecing together her movements through extensive CCTV footage. And quickly, they identified the man that she was last seen with, Jesse Kempson, now a person of interest. While the police began looking for her, Jesse, he seemingly carried on with his life, not worried about where Grace could be. Because while the police and her family were worried, the next day, what did Jesse do? Did he try to flee the country because the girl he was with has disappeared? Did he disguise his face? Did he lay low? No. That night, Jesse went on another Tinder date. Maybe he and Grace just didn't click. Maybe she went home with him, it didn't work, and maybe she didn't sleep with him, and he just still had this, urge to have another girl. He clearly was a serial dater, and Grace was out of the picture. But then where was she? Did she leave the hotel and find another man on the way home? Did she leave the hotel and slip and fall? Was she hit by a car? What was going on? Because Jesse was living his life as if he had never met her. But remember, New Zealand is the land of CCTV footage, and the police would soon have an answer as to at least Jesse's whereabouts that night. Before they brought him in for questioning, they wanted to gather some evidence, right? So they go through the CCTV footage, and we can very clearly see, which I will show on our YouTube video. If you're listening on our podcast, you can always go on our blog or on our YouTube to see the videos that we're posting. By now, the police have been alerted to Grace's missing status, and they start gathering CCTV footage from Jesse's hotel where he was living. This CCTV footage told the police everything that they needed to know. On December 2nd, the footage shows he and Grace, right, entering his hotel room arm in arm, like we mentioned, the night before her birthday. She doesn't look blacked out. She doesn't look in distress. She's walking just fine. And then that's it. There would never be another CCTV footage of Grace leaving. But you know what we did see? The next day, the CCTV footage shows Jesse leaving the apartment alone. And the CCTV footage tracks him throughout the city. They track every movement he made that day. And here is what he did. Jesse was seen in the shops buying a suitcase, a large one, buying cleaning supplies, and even he was in an Uber that had a camera that dropped him off at a car rental company where he rented a red Toyota. The next movements show Jesse leaving the hotel again. Where was he going? He was going on another Tinder date. Where's Grace? Everyone's looking for Grace. Jesse's buying cleaning supplies, renting a car, and going on another Tinder date. We also have CCTV footage of that Tinder date. According to that date, Jesse was reportedly discussing burying bodies. He made her feel so uneasy that she declined his offer to get into his car. The next we see Jesse, he is coming back to his apartment, and he has bought bottles of stain remover and also a rug doctor, like one of those big machines that scrubs the rug, because he said he had red wine stains on his carpet. And then the next CCTV footage we see of Jesse in his apartment building, a lot of it captured like in the elevator or in the lobby. This footage is when my heart sank. What I'm about to tell you, or if you're watching on YouTube, what I'm about to show you is sinister. You see Jesse leaving the apartment without Grace. He is leaving with 2 large suitcases, so heavy, so bulky, that he needs to put them on a trolley, one of those big hotel buggies, basically, where you put the luggage. He rolls these suitcases out and he loads them into the car that he rented. The next day at 7 a.m., Jesse is captured on camera buying a shovel. 2 hours later, he's power washing his car. And now, of course, it's going to be no surprise to you. What we know now is that inside those 2 suitcases were the remains of 21 or 22-year-old Grace Millane. Now, this is what the CCTV footage had captured, right? But while all of this was going on, the police were running their own investigation. And on December 5th, the police wanted to talk to Jesse. Jesse was brought in for questioning. Now, at first, in this interrogation, Jesse had claimed that he and Grace went on a date and then they went their separate ways. He claimed that they did not go to his hotel together. Like, did he not think that they would check the CCTV footage? However, when the interrogation happened, the police had not finished going through the several terabytes of CCTV footage. So they didn't have all the pieces. So this is on December 5th. They bring him in and they ask him, what happened? He says, we went on a date, we went our separate ways. That's it. At one point, the police leave and they close the door and the video is still recording. Classic interrogation tactic. They want to see how does he react when he's not being supervised with a person. And there's something that sticks with me. You see this dude stand up and he gets the attention of the interrogators and he says,
hey, I just want to ask a question. Am I being arrested for something I didn't do?
You've been arrested, but...
Oh.
What a weird phrase, right? He's clearly trying to play this weird victim role. The police come back and they say, you haven't been arrested yet. And he says, oh, good. He's let go that day, but the investigation continues. On December 6th, police review the CCTV footage, and they definitely identify Jesse Kempson as the last person to be seen with Grace. She enters his hotel and she never returns. Then they identify his suspicious activities, including the purchase of the shovel and the cleaning supplies. And so on December 8th, Jesse was taken into custody as a definite person of interest. And guess what? His story changed.
Speak to us about the events last Saturday. Is that correct?
Yes.
Tell me what happened last Saturday.
She started talking to me about 50 Shades of Grey. We started having sex. At first it was just normal. And then she asked me if we could get into bondage, having, I guess, more violent sex. We ended up on the floor. And then she told me to hold her throat. So I went into the shower. And then all I remember is falling asleep in the shower. I need to stop. I need to go.
He skips a whole thing. And he says, then I went to the shower and I fell asleep. You fell asleep in the shower, dude? And then he says, in the morning I woke up as if he had slept the whole night in the shower, as if that he was having sex with this girl. It was rough. And then he decided to take a shower and he fell asleep in the shower. And he said, I went back to bed. It was dark in the room still. And I didn't think to look for her. I just figured she had left. I didn't know that she was on the floor, dead.
I didn't know what to do. I went downstairs and I was just, I don't know, I was all over the place.
You come out of the shower.
Yep.
The light's been on in the shower.
Yep.
You've got a towel around you.
Yep.
You've turned the light off, and
Yep.
then you've returned to your bed and you've gone to sleep in your bed.
Yep.
And at that point, when you exit the shower, you don't look around, but your assumption from the silence.
I thought that she had gone. I thought she had left.
We're going to head out of here very, very soon, and you're going to take us to where you buried her.
Yep.
She will likely be exhumed tomorrow.
Okay.
At some point, and after that, a pathologist, a specialist doctor, will perform a post-mortem.
Yeah.
They're very skilled at establishing people's causes of death.
So Jesse then admitted, I didn't kill her. She just died, but I didn't know what to do. So I took her body, I put it in a suitcase, I drove it out into the wilderness, and I buried her. But that story doesn't match up to the crime scene because Grace's blood was everywhere, and he tried to leave her in a remote area. Eventually, Jesse led police to where he had buried Grace Millane. An autopsy confirmed that she had been strangled to death. The pressure on her neck lasted several minutes, evidence of intentional, not accidental harm. Even more damning, Jesse's phone searches showed things like he searched for flesh-eating birds. He then took photos of her body. And then we know the next day, he went on a Tinder date with another girl. He tried to get her in his car. What was his plan that night with the second woman? Was he planning to kill her too? Now is the time that we play detective. It's time to figure out what the hell happened. So more on Jesse Kempson. It turns out this guy did not have a solid reputation. In fact, Jesse was described by everyone that knew him as a pathological liar, telling lies to everyone that crossed his path, from family to employers to Grace. He was not an oil manager or whatever. He would tell stupid lies to people like he was dying of cancer, or that he was related to famous athletes, It turns out that Jesse had grown up moving from place to place when he was younger, mostly raised by his grandparents, and that he had gotten into the habit of assuming a new identity everywhere he went. With his lies, Jesse ended up losing jobs and apartments. Like, he told a landlord that he was a famous softball player. I guess that's a thing in New Zealand. And that he was waiting on money to pay his rent, right? The landlord then contacted this professional softball team and said, "Hey, does this guy play for you? Are you guys going to pay him soon?" And when the landlord found out that it was a total lie, Jesse lost his apartment and he ended up living in this hotel on government benefits. And it turns out that the day that he met Grace, he had actually lost his job in phone sales. He was fired that very same day. He was a bad person, having a bad day. And Grace just happened to be in a bad place at a bad time. The question that we always need to ask is, was this premeditated? Did Jesse go on a date with Grace that day, planning to kill her? Well, remember when he went through her purse? Part of me, as a woman, thinks, was he looking for pepper spray? Was he looking for a knife? Was he looking for a personal safety alarm? Was he looking for anything that could protect Grace? I think so. I think that he wanted to know that this girl couldn't fight back. I think that he planned to kill her that night. It turns out that right before he met Grace, Jesse made a manifesto on Facebook. Right before he met Grace, he says, "Hey everyone, I just wanted to touch base with you all. I've made a lot of bad decisions in my life so far that I'm not proud of, and some of which have greatly affected others. I first want to extend the most sincere apologies for this. I've done a lot of reflection over time and have narrowed down the cause of it all. And with that being said, I believe you all deserve to know. My clear arrogance and selfishness has truly affected the relationship I have with people in my personal life. I've recently been diagnosed with severe anxiety and currently take medication to keep this under control. Putting all this aside, I just want anyone to know who I've hurt, let down. I'm truly sorry from the bottom of my heart." This shows me at least that Jesse knows he's a bad person. He identifies with the bad things that he's done. He's trying to placate, he's trying to pretend that he can be better. But it still comes from a place of him knowing that he's done wrong. And if he identifies that way, and there's something within him that doesn't line up with his intentions and his thoughts and his actions, it is no surprise that he acted on his negative, evil thoughts that night. I believe that if the second woman that Jesse went on a date with while Grace's body was still in his apartment, if she had not listened to his intuition, I believe that he would have chosen to murder her too. I believe that he would have brought her back to his hotel, that he would have found joy in watching her horrified reaction of seeing another woman's dead body. I think that he was a serial killer in the making, which makes me absolutely furious and horrified and confused as to Jesse's sentencing. Before I tell you his sentencing, let me tell you that throughout the trial, Jesse still claimed that this was an accidental death during consensual rough sex. But his actions after the death, meticulously cleaning the scene, hiding her body, continuing life as if nothing happened, this proved otherwise. And you guys, we have discussed this before. If you ever hear of a man saying that she died during consensual rough sex, that's bullshit. Do you know how long it takes to strangle someone? It's not a minute. It's not two. You've got to hold someone's neck for 5 to 7 minutes as their life leaves their body. If you are engaged in some kind of sex with someone and you see them struggling, you simply take your hand off. To leave your hand there and to watch someone's life leave their eyes, that's intentional. And that is what Jesse did to Grace. Jesse Kempson was convicted of Grace's murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum of 17 years, meaning that he could possibly get out after 17 years, which horrifies me because additional trials have revealed a pattern of abuse. There are 2 other women who have come forward sharing their experiences with Jesse, saying that he had shown similar aggression towards them. If this man is let out after 17 years, he will surely do this again. Now, Grace's story is a wake-up call even to me. We have to take extra precautions when we're dating, especially when we're dating abroad. I know that if I tell you to never go home with a guy, that is going to be absolute bullshit advice because that's not going to happen. But what I want to tell you is this. When possible, never go to his place. Always take him to your hotel. If you are ever going to take a man back or take a man to a solo place, let it be on your territory. Let it be at a hotel that has your name in the books. Let it be at a hotel that has your passport. Because thank God the CCTV footage existed. Thank God Grace had let her friends know who she was going out with. Could you imagine if Grace had gone out on a date, didn't tell anyone where she was going, and that there was no CCTV footage? Would we have ever connected this death to him, to Jesse? Another thing I want to tell you to do is let that person know, hey, I've taken a screenshot of your profile and I've sent it to my best friend. Even one time, I had Amelia come outside and take a photo of the guy I was about to go on a date with, just because I knew that if he was planning anything crazy, he wouldn't get away with it. Be obvious, be unashamed. Let these men know that if I decide to kiss you or do an intimate adult thing with you, that someone knows who you are. Make sure they know that. And in the best case scenario, take them to your territory. Do not go to theirs. The second travel lesson I want to remind you of is that, this second Tinder date, she said, I didn't feel good about this guy, so I didn't get in the car with him. If she was wasted, she would not have been able to follow that intuition. Please, 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 my babes, watch your alcohol intake when you go on dates, because you do not want to numb that intuition. If that girl was numb, she might not be here to this day. In Grace's memory, her family has established the Love Grace campaign, providing handbags filled with essentials for women who are escaping abusive relationships. They've also raised funds for the White Ribbon campaign to end male violence against women. Now, of course, I don't want this story to scare you. I want it to prepare you. I want you to learn the lessons from this episode so that you can go out and you can date. You can find love. You can be carefree. I want us to learn something from Grace's legacy, and I hope that you've learned something today. Remember that I dump all of my safety lessons into my book, The One-Way Ticket Plan, Find and Fund Your Purpose While Traveling the World. This is the book that I've written for younger me, for my little sisters, for my future daughter. I want you guys to all know that travel is beautiful and it can be safe, but there are some non-negotiables that you need to burn into your brain. So don't let this story stop you from traveling. Rather, let this story empower you to travel safer. Don't forget Grace's story. If a story scares you, it's going to stick with you. And if it sticks with you, you're going to be a safer traveler naturally. That's it for tonight. I'll see you in the next episode. Travel safe. This podcast delves into true crime cases, and we want to remind our listeners that all individuals mentioned are presumed innocent until proven guilty. The opinions expressed here are solely those of myself and Amelia. We strive to research thoroughly and provide accurate and up-to-date information, but please be aware that some details may evolve over time. We encourage you to do your own research and verify the information presented. Thanks for listening.